theatre, film, TV and more. Suzy Wrong reviews it all on Joy Drive.
Hey, Suzy Wrong.
Hello, Andrew. Have you had the experience of seeing right before your eyes someone who was once beautiful and amazing turn into a terrible, scary monster?
That's, do you know what? All these people are flashing before me. I'm thinking, which one which one shall I talk to? When you say a monster, what are you talking? Are you talking physically or are you talking as a person?
I'm thinking of like that one moment when you see a different side of that person. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe you
like a narcissist that's come undone, and you expose them.
Like that, yeah.
You do. I saw one. I won't say anything, names or anything, but I saw one here at Joy once, and I thought was a really lovely person. And then one day, under pressure, the hair was sort of, all over the place. And I saw someone and I thought, oh my goodness, I did not expect that from this particular person in question. And I was shocked, to be honest, but I had my suspicions underneath. And I thought, you know what? I reckon there's another side to this person. And, you poke the bear a few times, eventually you see that side of the person. So yes, I have seen it. I've seen it before. I feel like it's a pattern with people, that people can only hide themselves for so long and then all of a sudden the real them shows when they get tired of putting up the mask. What about you, Suzy?
Oh, I have seen that happen before. It's very shocking.
Yeah.
Especially when it's, in my case, it's people who are much closer to me than kind of like, people that I work with. Mm. And that's a really shocking realization. But
don't you feel like, but can you recognize it in people? Can you, this, I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert in psychology and I'm so sure that someone will be able to get in touch if they know more about it. But, I'm sure that, I see this happen with people and there seems to be this thing about, I don't know, if you don't build them up or you don't inflate their ego, this is what I've noticed. It's almost like they can only do it for so long, stand it, and then all of a sudden it breaks. That's my experience. That's what I've noticed in a couple of people anyway. And I've seen a monster.
Well, I don't like it. That's all I can say. No. I don't wish for it. I don't wish for it to happen again. So maybe one of the things I've learned from it is to kind of maybe half expect that people are capable of quite extreme things. So yeah, it's a tricky thing because you don't want to face the world with such cynicism, but those are lessons that you do learn as you go through life.
It's almost like the alien bursts out of them, isn't it?
Yes. It's just like sometimes it feels like it comes out of nowhere.
I know, and it gets you, Suzy.
Yeah.
Now, this week we're talking about a movie. It's a horror film. I didn't realise that we produced many horror films here, but it's called Leviticus. Suzy, give us your professional review.
The story takes place in an unnamed Australian regional town within a community where religion plays a particularly strong role. A man with special exorcism powers is routinely asked to pray over young people who have been discovered to be gay so that they could miraculously turn straight. What actually happens is that demons are invited into their lives, taking the form of the people who these young men and women are in love with. They trick them into intimacy and attack them in those moments of vulnerability. The movie Leviticus, now available to rent on demand and still playing at some cinemas, is a horror movie about the relationship between homophobia and Christianity. Its very title is named after the biblical book of Leviticus, specifically referencing the verse often weaponized in homophobic rhetoric to label same-sex attraction as an abomination and a sin. We can argue over what the offending verse actually means until the cows come home, but it is undeniable the depth of damage that has been done in the name of religion against queer people over the centuries. There are many scenes in the film where it feels sobering to see the extent of extremism that still plays out in parts of modern Australian life. There is a naturalism to these sequences that is almost more terrifying than the obvious violence that occurs when the supernatural horror kicks in. At the center of Leviticus are Naim and Ryan, both coming to grips with their homosexuality while still retaining the innocence of teenhood. They are infatuated with each other in the most adorable way, but having been cast a spell by the church, they begin to see demon versions of their new boyfriends seducing them, and who will then go ballistic if any intimacy occurs. There are imperfections to the writing. There are some plot holes that bothered me quite a bit. But Leviticus is very well acted and sensitively directed, which is somewhat rare for the horror genre. It is not a high-budget film, but it looks and sounds great, which makes it a satisfying watch. It feels like it's made for younger audiences, and I'm not surprised that it's been a success with that crowd. The moral of the story is expressed very well. We understand at every juncture what the film wishes to say about the destructive aspects of religion, which really helps in making all the heightened dramatics easier to take. Warren, isn't it gratifying to see artists taking such a firm stance against these terrible factions of religious zealots?
Oh, Suzy, did you know that I would enjoy that?
I feel like it's a core part of your being.
Suzy, there's a really clever idea at the centre of Leviticus. I mean, two teenage boys are discovering that they're attracted to each other, something that should be exciting, should be awkward, should be frightening, should be wonderful, all in the usual ways that first love is. But they're surrounded by people telling them that those feelings are wrong. And the film asks, what happens when other people's fear gets inside your head and becomes your fear too? And I think the writer-director, is it Adrian Chiarella, has described wanting to explore not only conversion practices, but the many ways communities try to control young people when they're discovering sexuality, from overt intervention right down to everyday homophobic behaviour. Suzy, I think what grabbed me immediately is that the real horror isn't desire. It's being taught to be frightened of your own desire. That's what grabbed me with this one, Suzy.
Yeah, and all the horror is based on nothing. It's all based on nonsense, right? It's all based on fantasy to the extent that they can cause such harm. In this case, being a horror film, they can show the harm in, really extreme ways. One of the actually a couple of kids get killed by these visions that they conjure up. Obviously, a little bit different, quite a lot different from real life. But I think the extent of the damage, some of us have felt that, that devastation. And it's interesting. I don't know if interesting is the right word. It is kind of good to see this clarification of this line between young person's devastation and the cause of it being this complete fantasy, this complete weird nonsense about sin that's being thrust upon them.
Absolutely. And Suzy, I think, sexuality isn't something, happening naturally inside these young people like it should be. The fear's coming from outside, but eventually that kind of external judgment became internal, and, you watch the boys sort of policing themselves, and we've all done this before anybody else has to, so you don't get caught. It's sick. It's weird. It's wrong. It's inhumane. It's horrible. And I think the most frightening thing isn't somebody else rejecting you. It's when their rejection becomes the voice inside your head. I think that's insidious.
It's really good to see the film create this environment where, these people are infecting each other with these crazy ideas. That it happens in a vacuum. It is a really quiet town, right? And you know that it's modern day and everything. These people just look almost like regular people. But there's this stillness, there's this quiet that feels like a vacuum. It feels like there's a vacuum that's surrounding them. That is preventing them from getting information. It's preventing them from
being themselves,
accessing facts. Yeah. So that in the absence of truth and fact, all these crazy, harmful fantasies can become such a fundamental part of how they live and how they treat each other.
We're chatting with Suzy Rong. We're talking about the Australian horror film. It's called Leviticus. You can watch it now. Suzy, let's take away and everyone think about this, take away the sexuality for a moment, okay? Remember being young and attracted to somebody and thinking, do they like me? Should I kiss them? Did that look mean something? I mean, how often did you agonise over whether somebody looked at you the right way or not? And what did it mean? You'd be talking about it with your friends. Am I making a fool of myself? That's a lot of pressure, a lot of noise. First love is frightening enough as it is, as a kid, without adults telling you that the feeling itself is dangerous. It's just so much to put on top of kids. And people who think that they're doing the right thing and they're protecting kids, no, you're making it worse. You're making it harder for your own kids. So stop doing it. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, the rejection is double-fold, isn't it? Because everybody gets a sense of gets a fear of rejection, no matter what kind of sexuality you inhabit. But if you're a queer person, you have the additional fear of are you going to be ridiculed in a very specific way, and all that.
So innocent, those nerves.
And the additional thing is, how long will it take before this fear that we put into queer kids gets, reversed, removed, washed away? Does it ever? What do you think? Do you think we ever get away from it?
I don't know. So look, I'm lucky, and this is just my personal experience. I wasn't brought up religious. My father was quite blunt to me, and this is not being disrespectful to anyone out there, but this was my family, and this was their attitude. He said to me, you don't need that, and I won't say what he described it as. And so I wasn't brought up in that, and I was very thankful. But I observed, I had close friends, and I think I've told you this story. I had really close friends who were, and I thought, you know what, that's okay. That's their upbringing. It's their thing. I need to respect that. But when it came to my time of need, and I won't go into the story now, but my time of need, they wouldn't have a bar of me because I wouldn't practice their religion to be fixed. And I got rejected by my very best friend for that reason. So I'm thankful that I was completely removed from it. I'm so thankful. It's the best thing. And I would say to my father today even, thank you so much for protecting me and not being one of these people, Suzy. I think, we've got some of the deepest harm can come from somebody who genuinely believes they're doing it for your own good, and that's where it completely falls over.
I've had very little of that sort of background. I think I had when I was very small. My father is Catholic, but when I was a child, he was kind of trying to get away from an old-fashioned way of bringing up kids. And at that time, he was kind of non-practicing. He's now back to practicing. But when I was growing up as a child, he was non-practicing Catholic. And there was still, some basic questions to life that, children would ask. Where do people come from? Where do babies come from? He wasn't able to find other ways to explain it. So I did have some kind of old-fashioned Christian indoctrination in my childhood. But aside from that, I don't remember being kind of explicitly taught that, your sexuality, your gender experience, all that has a lot to do with Jesus Christ. I knew that it was a sin. I knew that it was a common belief in Singapore. It was quite a puritanical sort of society that I grew up in. So even though I wasn't directly taught those things, it was sort of everywhere in the ether. I feel like it. That's how people believed in life, in sexuality and gender, and I felt like I'm sure it's gone deep into sort of my very basis, my very essence. I think I do carry some of it still. And I do understand that some of it kind of like manifests in shame and all that, which
I think
feel
that's really
like,
sad.
Yeah. And I feel like it's an ongoing transformation that I do. I think I've gone pretty good at it. It doesn't control me. It's something that I have to be aware of. It's something that I need to remind myself that I need to kind of work against. Yeah, so I feel like it's still there. And no matter how many years, it's been decades and decades. I've left the country, 30 years, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a long story. I just feel like I'm not sure if it's something that I can completely wash away, but I do think that I am pretty good at understanding it and having quite a good level of control over it. if I understand myself well enough.
Suzy, just on that, here's a question for you. Let's say a parent can say, I love you. They can say, and then add, but I don't accept this part of you. Can those things exist? Because if somebody loves you on the condition that you change something fundamental about yourself, what exactly are they loving?
I think essentially what that message is it's a false message.
Not you.
It's not a contradiction that a person can make sense of in their head. I think. I think for queer people, all we can hear is that you're damaged and you are damaged goods, and unless you can change it, you're not going to be normal. And we know that we can never change those things. So deep down, I think, much as we want to believe that what we are hearing is true, that they're going to love us no matter what we do. They just don't love the sin. They love the sinner. They don't love the sin, sort of thing. I don't know if we can ever make that make sense. We can ever be convinced of that. So if we want to listen to those things, it's very hard not to ingest the idea and absorb the idea that you are damaged and incomplete.
Here's my thing. Is faith really the problem, or is it what people sometimes give themselves permission to do in its name?
What do you think? You think people use it as a convenience? I
think so. I see
other people down.
I see people. I've seen, as I described before, use it to justify cruel behaviour, and that's when I look at it and I think, oh, it's all a contradiction, because you can't say one thing and then practice something that doesn't line up with that, and people interpret things for their own use and then go and, I don't know what, I'm not Christian, I don't understand how it works, but I believe you go and, is it in in the Catholic religion where you go in and you confess your sins, and then it's like, having a shower, I'm fine now. I can be mean, but I'm okay.
I think a lot of old ways of doing things, a lot of old rules, old ways of life, including marriage and all that stuff, a lot of people actually find really difficult, even if you are straighty 180.
Where's the accountability?
And then I think there is a resentment to having to do those things. So when they see people not following those rules, like you and I, they think of us as rule breakers, and then they don't want to have to face the consequences of breaking those rules and live a more authentic life that feels more right for themselves. They feel resentment from having to do those things, which are difficult for anyone, and then they really hate it when they see people not obeying those rules. I feel like a lot of it is based on that.
Where's the accountability for your actions? I feel like it almost avoids that accountability. And I mean, how many queer people have sabotaged a relationship, avoided intimacy, or hurt somebody they wanted because they hadn't been able to accept themselves because of what the adults did to them or put into their head? I mean, we'll never know the number.
We don't have an answer today in our 20-minute chat. In the film, maybe at the end of the film, it kind of has an interesting suggestion with how we can break the cycle. I'm not sure if it's very convincing, but it is a suggestion. What do you think about the ending?
Do you know what? I think queer people have spent generations, Suzy, being told that we're the thing people should fear. So there's something satisfying about queer filmmakers taking ownership of horror. And I was thinking that when I was watching it, and maybe desire is frightening, because the moment you really want somebody, they've got the ability to hurt you. I actually really enjoyed the film. I haven't seen a horror movie for so long, but I was so deep in thought that I kind of missed the horror, the scary part of it.
Great. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I did. Suzy, one thing I just want to say, you don't have to be queer to understand what it feels like when somebody you love tells you that a part of you needs to change before they fully accept you. I think everyone can understand that, and I think that is what we all have in common. Suzy, what are we watching next week?
Next week, we are heading to YouTube to check out something called Foursome, a homemade reality series about two gay couples who had recently cross-pollinated and turned into a happy quad. The more the merrier, I guess. We'll talk about Foursome when I see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.